because films cost a lot. You know, but understanding now that people don't read like they used to, that's the next frontier of the writing, your audio visual. So I have to push my way on that.
So let's start here. How did you get into film, and why did you get into film?
Well, I was always a film guy. You know, I didn't read books as a kid. I watched movies.
But you wrote a lot of books.
I wrote a lot of books after I grew up.
Yes.
You know, but I'm talking about as a kid. I grew up watching plenty of movies, and even when I was writing books, I was watching plenty of movies. I've never stopped watching movies.
So you always been a movie man?
Always.
Oh, okay.
You know, so the books, you understood that it takes a whole lot more people to do movies.
Oh yeah.
The books is just you and in the paper. So that's why I started writing books.
So it's different medium
to making film. But now I have to deal with all those people because you know the book world has went down a few notches. You know, as far as the attention is concerned.
So tell me this. How is it doing books as opposed to, you doing it yourself, on the paper, as opposed to doing it, with a whole bunch of people? Is it a different part
it's going to be different. They all got their opinions, you know what I mean? Now you can't just dictate. Well, when you get to be a big enough director, you can dictate. You know, if you've already done it, you've been successful at it, then people are more prone to listen to you. Now, I'm going to have some dictation anyway because of the books has already established everything.
Yes.
You know, so it's not a script that people that they're not used to. So the books actually lock me in as well to say, okay, this is how this character is. This is how this character is.
So you have other people
help that same vibe too.
Now, so do you have other people helping interpret your character, or that's your part?
That's the problem that we're gonna have to work through because they have this whole idea of directing where I guess they think the book people are just supposed to go disappear while they work with the characters, but that's a whole lot of interpretation. Yeah, that's a whole lot of slippage that can happen with that character being executed correctly. But then they have actors that want to bring their own thing, and that's the thing. Is like when you have an excellent character that's already well mapped out, you don't want that extra stuff. Just perform the character as is, you know what I mean? Because they already have enough flavor.
Well, every artist had their own interpretation, and every director had their own.
So you ask me that question, that's going to be a problem because I'm like, yo, man, my character don't speak like that. My character don't act like that. You know what I mean? So get back in the zone of the character.
Yes.
These characters are already, classic. So
already, because the book's been out for how many years?
If you don't, if it ain't broke, don't break it. The book's been out for 26 years now. Fly Girl has.
Now let me ask you about Fly Girl. When Fly Girl first came out, how was it perceived?
Well, the young people picked up on it immediately. The language they weren't used to, our straight language, the contemporary times they weren't used to, and then a book about young urban people. So it was just blew their mind. Like, this is a book about us, speaking like us, in our terms, in our years, in our culture. So it was mind-blowing for a lot of people. But again, guys don't read like girls do, so I was lucky to write a book from a girl's perspective instead of a guy's, which I wrote a guy perspective anyway with Capital City about DC. Some people loved it, but again, guys don't read like girls do, and they would rather read girl-related books. So Fly Girl outsold Capital City and continues to.
Now, in the early days, because I work in the school system, so I remember seeing young people walking around the hall in the libraries on the steps reading Fly Girl. And I would tell them, oh, I know him. They're like, Mr. Quinn, you don't know him.
It got a whole lot of
it got a whole lot of play.
Some people never took them back to the library.
It was in the library.
Held on to their books.
And I remember seeing the cover, and when the cover was, the cover be all bent up and everything.
Yeah.
And that shows that they were really actually reading the book.
Yeah.
So that was wonderful, man. But Fly Girl has done well for you.
Well, yeah, but I wish the other books, sometimes they get stuck on one book. The other books is just as good, you know what I mean? But it's not on the same subject of a girl coming up, in the urban era. So a lot of times they want to relate, and book is about being more than relating. Sometimes it's about exploring and finding out new stuff. So we got to get our young people to stop wanting to relate to everything and sometimes explore, expand your brain a little bit.
Other things, yes. Now, you did another book where Fly Girl had grown up, is that right?
Yeah, For the Love of Money, and then Boss Lady. And I just did
Which
that to keep it going. You know what I mean? Because the first book was the one that everybody will focus on. The second book, For the Love of Money, that's the one that got me an NAACP Image Award with the poetry that was involved in it. But yeah, she did grow up and become more mature. And then Boss Lady, she branded the whole Fly Girl brand, so she came back again. But that was just me stretching it to get to that movie point, you know what I mean, and come back. And then it took too long, man. This book has been an option for the last 5 years before I wrote my screenplay. Wow. And so I'm just tired of waiting now. I'm ready to go ahead and push everything forward.
So what has been the process, Omar, going from the book to the screenplay?
Well, number one, man.
Did you write the screenplay yourself?
I did. But 5 years I had an option with some guys out in Hollywood who were supposed to produce the movie, do the screenplay. Of course, I was going to watch everything.
Right.
They didn't do anything, you know what I mean? Give me a bunch of lip service for 5 years, and so that's when I wrote my own screenplay in November, December. And it's excellent, you know what I mean?
Now,
so I'm putting it out because I want the people to know that, you know, I'm not just going to be sitting on the side anymore. I'm putting myself right in the middle of it. And there's no reason to write another screenplay. This screenplay is off the charts. I know the information, I know the characters, I know the city, I know the lingo, I know the time, you know what I mean? I know the locations. So it's like, again, like, why would you even...
You know where the story takes place.
Yeah, why would you even think about doing this film without Omar being involved, unless they think that I'm going to be difficult to the actors, which I'm not. I'm going to be all the help to everybody.
Yeah. But that happens sometimes. Sometimes you write a book, and then Hollywood gets their hand on it, and then the people who wrote the book, or the person who wrote the book, is not involved.
That's what happens.
And then it goes somewhere else.
They figure that you're too married to the story, so they want to put you out the way so they can tell their story.
Oh, so they think you're too close to it sometimes.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Oh,
even with the screenplay I wrote, it's 3 hours long. So Hollywood, me, like, oh no, we gotta have a 2-hour movie. Every movie in 2 hours, particularly when you're dealing with books that are very complicated, you end up with 2.5 or more. You know, that's normal. And so I'm like, no, this book is worth that much.
So you could end up with
it's not going to be a total 3 hours. I got to cut it back to like 2:45. But even that, they're like, no, it's 2 hours. No, dude, you're going to cut a whole lot of stuff on the floor to try to force it into 2 hours.
2 hours, yeah.
You know,
and
so
that's going to cut some of the story out.
Yeah, so, and, you know, and they're like, that's what we do. And I'm like, look, dude, we're going to make a lot more money if we do a complete story.
Tell a story,
as opposed to a half,
well,
you know.
Well, it could be a short series then.
Well, you know, that's the argument you asked me earlier. Working with other people that have their other ideas, that you know, that's the problem. And so I didn't have to deal with that for years as a book writer. Now I definitely have to deal with that
in the movie industry.
Yeah, but all my movies are not going to be 3 hours. Just that Fly Girl was that complicated to get everything in there. Now all the other books are going to come back down to 2 hours or less. You know, now some movies that are less than 2 hours, they're comedies, straightforward comedies. I haven't been writing, you know, straightforward comedies. Now I wrote an original comedy for DC, a movie called Broken Sexy, talking about the dating game, and that's 100 minutes. So that's under, you know, that 2 hour, because that's a straight original comedy I wrote for a stage play.
Now, did you have to
smaller?
Now, did you have to learn how to write screenplays, or you had been writing screenplays?
No, you have to learn how to do that. You know, because it's a different form of writing. I've been writing novels for long, where you explain everything.
How different though, Omar? How different is writing the screenplay?
Well, you got to understand how to let the cameras do the talking and set up the cameras. Then you got to understand that the characters
movements.
The characters are going to do their move. Every word has to count, so you can't have dialogue that's not going anywhere. Like in a book, you can have them have a long conversation. In the film, you got to get to the beef of it. You know what I mean? So it's a lot more intense when you're writing screenplays. But
in terms of time,
to it, because you don't have the time to do it. You know, so instead of us having a 30-minute interview, we got a 3-minute interview.
Wow.
So we got to get right to the beat. Yeah, that's the difference. You know, so that's the difference in the books. But you know, I've learned and picked it up now. Of course, I'm still going to be more long-winded than the typical screenplay writers, but that's a good thing as far as I'm concerned, because it's better storytelling.
Now, was that hard for you to learn how to do that?
No. You know what I mean? I had to focus on it. The first couple of years I was writing screenplays, I was still writing books. So I wasn't focused on it. Now I'm not writing books, so I'm strictly focused on film. So yeah, definitely they're going to get a lot better now. But again, I'm not going to write screenplays the way Hollywood. They got a lot of cold, flat, robotic feel. You know, I have more of a warm feel because I'm coming from the novel game. And so my screenplays have more warmth.
You bring that
feel more realistic. The characters, and that's one of the problems that's going to happen here now. A lot of the actors like to bring their own interpretation because the screenplays are so flat and nothing there.
And they're used to
With me, I have warmth and I already have the character. So now it's like they have less to do, but some of them want to fight that. You know what I mean? So I got to fight them like, no.
Because that's not what they're used to.
And you're good. You know?
That's not what they're used to. That's why.
Well, you know, they're not used to that either. They get these flat, you know, but some of them, if you're reading screenplays that have more definition, more defined to them, like that dude Quentin Tarantino, I'm quite sure his stuff has a lot more stuff in it, where, you know what I mean, you got to learn all them lines and say all them lines. So yeah, with him, then it's less of, you know, being outside. You can stick straight to his characters. He writes them with so much definition. That's how I write, you know what I mean, with a lot of definition, a lot of character, a lot of flair.
And it takes that though.
Yeah.
It takes that. Yeah. That's
But
interesting.
yeah, you
man.
got to focus on it to be able to do it right. You know, you can't be one foot in book novels and then one foot in, you know. So now I'm totally focused on the screenplay writing.
It can't be both. You do have to focus.
It can be both, but you know, I'm an all-in person. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
if I'm trying
Hands
to focus
on.
on two, it's a lot of time. You know, so right now I can focus 100% on the screenplay writing. Yeah.
Whereas before you was just in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Now-
before I was doing screenplays, but yeah, I was more the focus is on the books.
So Fly Girl has been flagship for you. The beginning, there were things really start to happen, or did it happen? before that?
What does flagship mean?
Well, I guess the book that really that you really focused on much in the beginning. That was one of your early books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Capital City was an early book. Colored on White Campus was my first book. But yeah, the Fly Girl has always been a blessing and a curse to me because it's like it's not my favorite book, and it's the girl's favorites because it's a female character. But a whole lot of the other books that I've written, I feel like they've gotten less shine because of the Fly Girl, and it's not because of the other books aren't good. They just relate. I relate the Fly Girl, and it's like so now it's like okay, so it's great, but won't you read something else and get excited? Now some of the other girls do like Leslie, which is my favorite character. That's a book out of New Orleans, a suspenseful horror.
I remember Leslie.
Yeah,
yes.
I'm masculine, so I like Just Say No, a story about a musician out of North Carolina. That's my favorite. You know,
I remember that too.
Long and didactic. You know, so I got a lot of books where all the characters are well defined, the stories are well defined, but depending on what they want to read and where their minds are, they continue to choose what they choose.
So
and
depending
a lot
on
of girls chose Fly Girl because it's a coming of age story for the woman. You know what I mean? So that's that relatability.
So that's the blessing. So what would you say would be the curse? Because you said it was the blessing.
The curse is that it seems like I'm a one book writer. You know what I mean? Like
and you've written many books.
Say it again.
You've written many books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you only focused on Fly
one,
Girl,
yeah.
So that's where the curse is. Like you make me feel like I can't. Yeah, I just lucked up on one book.
Just forget about the other books, right? All the other books.
Like I just got lucky. You know what I mean? Like I can't write, and that's not the case.
No, that's
So
far from the case.
that's where the curse is. You're like, once you read some other stuff, oh, I really love Fly Girl. Okay, I get that, but you read that 8 times now. Read some other.
8 times.
They tell you. Yeah,
they tell you that.
Yeah, some of them 20 times. They tell you they're addicted to it. So I know what the film is going to do.
Fly Girl was out, 20-some years ago when it first
26.
came out? So you got a whole generation of people who grew up reading Fly Girls.
Yeah.
How does that feel?
Well, right now it doesn't reverberate with me because I'm looking at it really entrenching itself in the culture again. So now it's old conversation. I used to read, I read before, so it's like I'm still alive, right?
Yeah, it's not like you're going anywhere.
Yeah, you know, so you don't want them to keep pushing stuff that's old for them.
Yes.
You got to make something new for the new people, and
But that's what you're doing now
again.
with the screenplays.
Yeah.
Yes. Let's talk about the screenplay and the story.
Well, the screenplay, where the story is from age 6 to 17, there's no way in hell I'm going to do that with a screenplay because it's too many years.
Yes. How do you condense all of that?
Well, you cut it in half and say I'm only going to deal with the 15 to the 17. You know, so I don't even deal with them early. If you want to get those early years, go read the book. You know what I mean? So I cut that in half and really leave it.
Yeah, because you can't give all that detail. It's too much.
Yeah, already 3 hours just in those 3 years. You know what I mean?
But that's another thing that you learn also writing screenplays. That it's time focused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I already had strength focus.
I know that's right.
Yeah, it's cutting and slicing more now. You know what I mean? But right now I also have the cut lines I want to have for Fly Girl, the screenplay. Right now it's 3 hours, but I can still cut it to 2:45. And then I want some of these Hollywood professionals to tell me where to cut. You know what I mean? You know so much, tell me where to cut.
So that's their area.
The story's that tight. Yeah. So they would have to cut out entire section, and even they know that I can't cut out this whole section.
Because that's the big part of the story.
Is do little nibbles, and then that's how you get to 2:45. I don't see it getting anywhere lower than 2:40.
But see, I think that's why it's also important that as an author that you be there too to say, we can't cut that.
But that's why they don't like us around because it gets in their way. You know what I mean? That's how they do. It gets in their way. You know, where they want to tell a story, you got an author saying, that's not right, it's not right. Look, it's going to be right for this story. And then the author ends up having to explain that they had to have their artistic license when they're making a movie, and that's why this was there, and that's there,
So they have to go through all of that.
Having to explain all that.
You know what, brother, I'm glad you're saying this because the average one of us, we don't realize that you go through all that when you're making a film.
You do.
Wow, so
Yeah,
that
when
really
they,
does.
When they
So
put the money down, that's a lot of money on film, and that's where it is. Like, I got the money. Do you want to make this film or not? So that's the hard part. What I'm going to have to deal with right now, because now I have people that may want to work with me, but they may not want to use my screenplay. So that's an automatic problem. You know, because you get paid for the screenplay. Now the screenplay is your vision. You know what I mean? Now
it's your baby.
They don't want to write that because they want to bring in their own team. And I'm like, okay, that's great, but this is my vehicle. And so now it's like they're trying to take my vehicle and make their film.
So
you know
it's
what I
the
mean?
matter
So
of
it's one of the weird things, man. Where it's like you gotta let go, and it's like, dude.
So it's really, a matter of compromise. Well, I guess it is.
You already know.
Yeah,
it's more than
that's
compromise.
What it is.
It's torture.
It's torture.
That ain't compromising. Look, we got you. We're gonna take this book. We don't want you saying we got it. This is what we do. You did what you did already. Go over there and sit in the corner till we tell you to help us.
But in your mind, are you thinking,
you know my personality. Right?
Yeah, you said, well, yeah, but that ain't the story that I wrote.
In the corner.
No, I know it's your personality. You need to sit in the corner.
And then I'll start talking about you. You know, we heard Omar's. I'm not difficult like that. Just put me at the table and let's work. I'm a grown man like you're grown. I'm logical.
Yeah.
You know, see this whole thing, that's how they try to make you seem like you're crazy. Dude, if I wrote the screenplay and I know the book, I know the character, I know the city, I know the era,
they lived
I
in
know
your
how
head.
we speak, I'm a Philadelphia. It's a Philadelphia. So I'm like, oh, well, that doesn't mean any Philadelphia. Dude, I'm very specific for this story. So it's like, it's automatic. Like, let Omar work with you, and they'll find out, like, yo, he's very efficient, very quick, understands what he's doing with the young actors. They like him. You know what I mean? It's really now, if I'm involved in it, I can be more involved in everything. But if you cut me out, I'm gonna feel like.
Well, I don't see how they could cut you out. That's your baby.
What I want to help out with, you know what I mean? It's almost like you got this thing where you want them to fail because you know what I mean. And I don't want to be like that.
No,
you really do.
That.
You ain't want to listen to me and they fail, like I told them. So you in this awkward position if they don't allow you to, have your say.
Have the impact, but it's your baby. So those characters lived in your head before they was ever in the book anyway.
But that's the norm with all book writers. You know what I mean? It's the norm with all of them. But all of them don't write the screenplay. Now that I've written the screenplay
yourself.
Oh, it's on now. So we got a new battle because it's good. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. It's like I did, and immediately I look at the page count and say it's 180. I don't want to read that. So now it's like, okay, now you don't want to read. Oh, you're going to have to read it. You know what I mean? Because you have to see the vision. And if you want to cut it down, then I'm cool with that. Just tell me where. But you can't tell me where if you're not going to read the screenplay.
Well, that's what I'm saying. How you going to know where to cut it? Unless you read it, you don't know it.
If they're trying to dictate, well, we don't care. You can't put it in. And I'm like, no, dude. This book right here is 400. I got down 180. You mean tell me you can't read it and help me to get it a little? You know what I mean? Like like, do you really want to do the book? Like, you got to ask them. Like, do you really? Now you telling me that you guys read screenplays all the time? You gonna tell me that you can't read an extra 30 pages or whatever? That's more than 30 pages, extra 60 pages. Well, whatever it is, it's reading. And it's good.
Yeah, but if you know the story,
go ahead and read it.
But my point is, if you know the story, then you can better help you.
They don't care about that, man. They don't care about that. They got their own egos in Hollywood. They don't care about none of that. And I'm a very logical. You've been around me for years. I'm very logical. Everything makes sense. So for them, it doesn't because we got 2-hour movies and you don't have all 2 hours. No, that's a lie.
So what you telling me?
But then they'll say, well, this movie is special. Well, this movie here is special.
So Omar, what you telling me? They saying, well, but special. So you saying to me that, well, but they saying it doesn't fit the format.
Well, that's what they say.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
That's a lie because again, you have other movies that are 3 hours.
That are examples of that.
That are successful films. But again, they start saying, but this, but that. You always gonna have some exceptions.
Yes,
always. I've been an exception. Me writing urban books was an exception. Me coming straight out of college and writing book was an exception. Me being a young black man getting 6 figures for writing books was an exception. So I'm already in that exceptional thing. You know what I mean? So now, we're going to try to go by the rules now. This whole book in itself is an exception. You know what I mean? So let's shoot an exceptional movie.
The fact that I had you on in the 90s on my show with all of your books was an exception because I never had anybody on, author had reached the kind of level that you had. Yeah. So, that was a blessing also. But the thing is, right now I just want to talk about the screenplay and how we can get the screenplay.
Well, you can get it off of Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble's Nook. Amazon has a Kindle. And then you got iBook right from your iPhone. So it's on all those platforms as an ebook. And it's a very great read. And now you can see exactly what the vision is. Again, I start from 15 to 17. Those are the core years of the 1980s, 1984 to 1986. That's another issue that, I was bouncing around with Hollywood. They wanted to make it a contemporary story. And immediately I said, well, okay, how you gonna take a fly girl out of the era where they use the word fly? Now they use the word lit. They don't even use the word fly. So now you're taking the character out of the culture that created her.
In the period.
Yeah, so I'm like, that ain't gonna work.
But that's intricately tied to the story of who Fly Girl is.
Yeah, so immediately, if they change that, even that word fly, you know what I mean? Like, you changing the whole context of the story. Yeah. How is that going to make sense now?
Try to make it more contemporary.
Yeah. You know, so I'm like,
it is what it is.
Do that. So then the whole idea becomes, okay, are these young kids going to relate to the 80s? You know, then I'm like, okay, do young girls still talk to boys? Do boys still talk to girls? Are boys still cool? Do we still listen to hip hop music?
Of course.
Do we still like fashion and clothes? You know, so I'm thinking, are we still hip and slick? So we had all that stuff in the 80s. In fact, we started the gold chain wearing. We started the all the fancy clothes. We started hip hop,
the dances and all of that.
Yeah, so that
you're
not going to relate to that. Like, it's ridiculous. So I hear that all the time. Like,
but there's plenty of people.
Now watch this. The catch is, we got to put teenagers in this movie. So they're going to actually be in the movie. So now they're not going to watch themselves in the movie because it's the 80s?
No. But these teenagers,
they're going to be stuck. They're going to be thinking, wow, I'd love to go back to that time. But no cell phones and knocking on the door, house parties, club parties.
Because that's how we grew up.
Everybody was outside the playground in the 80s. Yeah. So now you got a camera angle. They got like 100 people outside. They don't even have crowds like that unless they go into a concert.
I was thinking about this, Omar, also, that the young kids that play some of the characters in the movie, they're probably their parents probably grew up during that era.
Yeah.
Also, that's another thing.
Well, that's what's that? Will Smith and Jada Pinkett.
Yes.
You know, so they all coming from the 80s, and that's where when people say, "Who are you making the film for?" Well, of course, I grew up in the 80s. I turned 50 today. It's my birthday.
Today's your birthday?
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday on out to my brother, y'all. Yeah. Wow, man.
So I turned 50 today. We all 80s kids. You know what I mean? I came up 69, all 80s kids. But we created way more than everybody, but now they're trying to throw us away. Yeah. You know what I mean? So a whole lot of the iconic guys were teenagers in the 80s, including Tupac and Biggie,
in the 80s.
Snoop Dogg. Yeah. All of us was teenagers in the 80s. Yeah. All of us. Snoop Dogg, you know, Nas, Jay-Z, Puffy, all of us are hitting 50s now. Wow. Ice Cube, all the NWA guys. So to look at that, all of them, to look at Master P, all of them, to look at all of them icons, and say that era didn't. Are you out of your mind?
I guess I'm.
It's crazy.
I guess I'm.
But that's what people ask me. Like, is this generation going to relate? Yeah, they better relate.
I guess I'm partial because I say the 80s and the music and the culture of the 80s, and going into the time. To me, it was like, man. To me, it was the best, but that's the name.
Now with the dashikis and the Black Power, you're going back to the 60s and the 70s, and then of course white folks copy that energy in the 70s with the whole, peace and love movement. You know what I mean?
With the Flower Children and all that.
So they always copy them.
But you know what you're saying to me, that in a sense that everything is connected in a sense. Yeah. Life created art, art created life. Yeah. Or maybe both. What you think it is?
Yeah. So I think it's both of them. You know what I mean? It's trading back and forth. Sometimes you're gonna have originators and you're gonna have some copiers. You know what I mean? That's what it is. These kids copy a lot now.
They do.
They're not original.
It's like they freak.
They copy a lot. They see what other kids are doing. They hear how other kids sound, and they copy it. And then my sons argue all the time, talking about it's different. And I'm like, okay, what you got?
Really?
8 shades of purple? It's still purple.
So how old is your son?
I want some blue, I want some orange, I want some green. And them kids, man, they'll start saying, well, I can't sell if I sound too different. You see what I'm talking about? If I look too different.
So it's all right to sound like everybody else?
That's what it is. Right now, that's what they do.
Interesting you said it because I remember an interview with Prince some time ago, and he was talking to young people. Yeah. And he was saying that, he said, well, they asked him, you sample and Prince like, no, my generation, we didn't sample, wasn't nobody sampling. We wrote music. We wrote music. They didn't understand that.
And that's what's going on right now. Because I'm in the music now, like I pick a lot of tracks.
Yes.
And a lot of tracks that I pick have a lot of rhythm patterns. Because we had bands that we playing on. Even in DC, you had all them instruments.
Oh, we had Chuck
and the kids now, they like a lot of minimalist music. And they focus on the bass and the kick. And that's it. They might have one rhythm and the bass and the kick, and the rest of the song is empty. So when they hear stuff that I like, that's busy, that's old school. It's got all these instruments swimming. I said, no, man, that's funk, man. like we came up
That's
on
what
it.
folk
But
is.
they're not used to that because they don't
They don't know
have
that.
bands playing all them different
And
instruments.
they haven't heard that.
Where you got to be on beat. Everybody's
Yes.
on beat together.
Everybody's in
They
rhythm.
don't have to. Now you got
Everybody's
one
in sync.
dude with a keyboard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know. So
And
different.
it's a lot there, but I'm like,
Yeah.
but it's different.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how old is your son?
Oh, my sons are 22 and 20, and the 22-year-old's turning 23.
And you're 50. When I met you, you had no son.
Hey, man, every era has their own, because they
Yeah.
fight for this stuff. They will argue me down, you know what I mean?
You have a son and a daughter, or just a son?
Two sons.
Two sons. Oh,
Two
I
sons.
thought you
Yeah,
had a son.
20 and 22.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
man. Man, that's
Yeah.
beautiful, brother. Congratulations,
Yeah.
man. Wow, I didn't know that. I know you had, I know you had a
Yeah,
son. I didn't
man,
know
we
that.
grew up and we had kids, and then
Wow.
the kids had kids, and then the kids
They
had
said, Daddy,
kids.
this was y'all music back in the day, you know.
Yeah, back in the day it was just me, myself, and I, you know?
Yes, and you was running.
Yeah.
You came in running. When you left my studio, you was running. I said, this boy here.
Well, I mean, yeah, this wasn't my city, you know. But,
Yeah.
You know, it's like the second home regardless.
We adapted you, though.
I spent the most time here outside of Charlotte now. You know? Yeah, so I still call this the second home.
But tell me this also, Omar, because I want to know. You're from Philly. What was it like growing up in Philly during the time in which you grew up? Was there very much different, say, than any other city?
Well, every place is different. You know, you say D.C. Going to D.C. in the '80s versus now is different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Every city is different.
Yeah.
Just the times are different.
Yeah, the time. Yeah,
So,
that's.
you know,
that's
and this is interesting when you talk about Philadelphia. We working on this book Fly Girl right now. Right? We have to have a main character play Tracy.
Okay.
And the Philadelphia language is very hard. You know, we talk every word counts. You know, so girl, like, you gonna give me your phone number? What? You gonna call me? Everything is hard because it's a hard city. Everything. So every word that come out of Philadelphia, it sounds like it's about to punch you in the head. You know what I mean?
It's like it's urgent.
Well, I gotta teach girls who ain't from Philly if they end up landing apart, like, hey, you got to beef up your voice and everything count. And they come in, can I have your phone number? Like, no, that ain't a Philadelphia girl. Can I get your number? You know what I mean? Like, it's harder. Everything is harder. You know, can I get your number? You know, ain't no, can I have your phone? It ain't no the nicety.
So, okay.
They hard. And so I'm used to that.
Okay.
So I'm like that too. So it's just like a part of how you are as a Philadelphian. And everybody else like, y'all rough, y'all from the hood. And you can be middle class, but it don't matter in Philadelphia. We still gonna talk with a certain urgency and force. You know what I mean? So if you listen to Kevin Hart right now and Will Smith, every word that come out of their mouth is like this. You know what I mean? It's same thing with Jill Scott.
But
think about her first song.
Well, yeah, that's true.
No way of what she coming off hard. Like, I'm ready to beat this girl down. You know, that's just Philadelphia.
But it's different here, though.
Well,
when you came here, was it like a little culture shock when you came to DC?
I can say y'all got different areas where y'all got, you know what I mean, the southeast and the southwest and the northeast and northwest.
Then you got PG County,
you know what I mean, the Howard people. You got the people that never was a part of the Howard thing. Y'all got famous high schools. Y'all got famous.
That's true.
DC got their history too now.
Yeah,
I've been there. I wrote about it. A couple of times. I had the Marion Barry story.
I know you did. Talk about that for a second. How did you come to do that?
Zane called me up and asked me if I wanted
Zane
to
lives
do
here.
it. Yeah, because Zane was already working with
us.
And Zane knew I was a journalist. She knew I went to Howard. She knew I knew the DC area. And I was like, Marion Barry's book? Of course I would do it. So they flew me in and sat down and talked to him, and I put down my parameters and my terms. And I already had an outline for him. I went online and checked him out and presented an outline. He's like, you did all this already?
I was going to say, you did the outline before you
I'm a journalist. You talking about Marion Barry?
Well, you were a journalist, yeah. You know, people forget that you were a journalist.
Yeah.
You were writing for
Capital Spotlight.
Yeah, Spotlight. When I met you, you were still at the Spotlight.
And then I worked for the Hilltop, and I worked for the Community News at Howard. And I wrote a whole lot of magazine articles, including, the Washington View?
Washington View? Washington Informer?
Yeah, no, the Washington View was a magazine.
Right.
Yeah, for Malcolm Beach. He had an office on 8th
Malcolm,
Street.
I knew Malcolm. He's a lawyer.
Malcolm Beach, So I was writing a whole lot of stuff that people just didn't know.
Wow. And then, so when you came up with your first book, I was like, wow, this brother can write books.
Yeah,
so
I was pushing to sell it. I had to sell it. I had to get that money back. I owed people money. You know,
yeah, so you was telling me how this older gentleman helped you.
I was pushing hard.
Yeah, there was an older gentleman who helped you.
Yeah, Amos Drummond. He's still my boy now.
Oh,
He's still young looking and still popping around, man. He got a lot of energy.
But he believed in you.
Oh yeah,
he believed in you.
And that's hard to get, man. You got a lot of black people that got money right now, man, and it's like they will sit on that money and they do what I call a pleasure principle. They will buy 8 cars, 12 houses. They got 5 chicks on the side, 8 baby mamas. Well, if you ask them to put down some money to invest in you, I ain't got it. I am black people, man. I was like, God, dude, you got all this. Oprah Winfrey, was she listed at $3.5 billion right now? Something like that. And I heard Oprah's last interview. I'm not just gonna say it's the last one, but she's saying that she's comfortable now in telling people no and comfortable with, you know, turning. Yeah, because she got all that money. Everybody asking. You know, I'm sitting there, I'm thinking I would never have $3.5 billion because there's so much I could do with that. Wow, yeah. And I can't take it. So I just don't understand that philosophy of these white boys. $88 billion. I just don't get it, man. Like, what are you doing with that? So it's just that whole, I got 80. Yeah, I'm like, come on, man. $88 billion? Like, what are you doing?
Well, you going to take it with you when you go away?
Yeah, so I don't understand that, but that's why I don't say, that's why you'll never. I'm not thinking about that. If I got me about 10 million, I'm good with the family, then the rest of it, I'm willing to maybe do some business stuff, you know? But this is how these guys think, man. They do crowd everything. Me, mine, you know, and that's how they got there in the first place.
Because their philosophy is,
have our people doing that.
But you know,
ridiculous.
Now I don't want to say this about Oprah, but I'm saying a lot of people who of that ilk, their philosophy is greed is good.
I don't trust nobody but me. You know, and black folks, we got it bad, man, because you know, white folks, they do their own business with each other. You know what I mean? All that millionaires do business with each other. Now we got some that do that business too, but we got too many who don't get it. White folks get a start. They can get a start. We can't get a start. And they say, good luck, man. Somebody help you out. You got all the money right now.
You
telling me good luck, right? Come on and go ahead and put me in the office. You know, put me to work. And that's why a lot of youth have lost a lot of respect for the elders, man. You see how they treat the elders like, oh, man, you old, because you haven't put them on. You know, at this point, with all the musicians that I'm naming, you know, Puff Daddy and Jay-Z, they all got Ice Cube. They all got businesses. They can hire 20, 30, 40 kids, 50, 60, 70 kids. They got the money for it, right? But they picking and choosing one at a time. It's like ridiculous. Now, Jay-Z is picking up a lot of guys in sports, a lot of guys.
And putting them on.
Yeah, he's doing a lot more. Puffy, of course, has been doing it for years. But they can do so much more, you know what I mean? So I'm looking at what I'm doing with the film thing. Of course, I got to hire a whole bunch of kids to act out the movies, to be in the movies, direct it, screen.
Do you have to
even helping me to edit the screenplays? There's a whole lot of opportunities for young people to be involved with me.
So this is a big project. It involves a lot of people.
Yeah, this ain't no independent small deal. I keep telling people this is huge.
Now, can you do you have backing of people?
No, that's what I'm talking about.
It's all on you.
Keep knocking on doors. Yeah, I got conversations, but they try to control everything. It ain't a conversation with you. It's like, give me this and I'll get back to you. And when they do that, they don't even offer you enough money. If you gonna screw me like that, at least give me some money.
Well, don't give me enough money to fail.
That's what it is. So they don't give you no money, and then they tell you to your face, this is the opportunity for you. You know what I mean? Like, no, it ain't. I ain't making no money off of it. And you're going to get all the credit for, but you wrote the book. They know you wrote the book. Yeah, but you about to screw it up because you're not listening to me on the film. You know, so it's really a
you've been learning the whole learning process over years.
Well, you know, like I said, if you force yourself through and you get more power in the beginning, then you can do a lot more stuff with more power, you know, as you continue to move. And that's what I have to do because I have too much content to be in a position where I'm listening to somebody else all the time. So it's best now to get that out the way so that now they're listening to me and willing to work with me. That's how I became a book writer with so many books. You know what I mean? I was doing what I did, and those guys moved out the way and let me do my thing. Now, to start with books, we needed the films because we got too many book writers now. You know what I mean? So
everybody's
writing. Separate, and films allow you to separate because now your stories are able to be seen on a big screen with more impact and detail where they can see, wow, that story is much better than, you know what I mean? And some people are like, oh, what's the difference in all these stories? You know, you put it on the screen, you can see the difference. Yeah, because then you got people saying ridiculous stuff and all the plots don't add up. And it's like, well, that's in the book like that. Well, y'all thought that book was good. It looked crazy on the movie, you know. So you got to be.
Because all the time you see people will say, well, I saw the movie and that's how the book, and then you know it ain't meshing together. Sometimes people say that because they cut so much out of the story that the story
I wanted the Fly Girl screenplay to stand up to the book. And that's one of the issues.
That's a point, though.
Let's say one of the Hollywood people try to, you know, you see, and now you got to match my writing skills.
Yes.
So then they say, well, what are you trying to say, Omar? The Hollywood people can't match your writing skill? Not with this particular urban type of book, where I understand urban, who are invested in the urban community and understand the psychology of the urban and is indelicate, as balanced as I am. And so my thing is, let me see it. And they didn't do it. So I've been saying that for years, like, because I'm curious. Let me see you do that so I can shut up. Let me see it. And they didn't do it.
Well, if they did it, then you wouldn't have to.
If they did it, I wouldn't have written the screenplay.
Yes.
You see what I'm talking about? So now I'm like, all right, let me see what you would do. You know what I mean? Because I got mine now. Mine is public knowledge now. They reading it and loving it. You know, so now I'm like, let me see how you would match this with not being me.
So again, tell us where we can
You can get it from Amazon.com for the Kindle. You can get it for BarnesandNobles.com on your Nook, and then you can also get it on your regular Apple phone device with iBook. And it's at every other place where you download ebooks is there.
Okay, now
and
before
we Fly Girl, the epic screenplay by Omar Tyree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now before we run out of time, tell us about All Access.
All Access is a book that I wrote, the last physical book. I came out with in 2015, and it's about how much we're giving up to social media, to reality shows, you know, cameras on, even right now. You know,
we on social media, come on now.
Yeah, so how much access are you going to give up to your personal life? You know, some people go overboard. They got them in their family members and their husbands and wives and all that intricate conversations and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
You know, so you letting people in, and when you do that, now they have this conversation about your life where they can damage you, and now you're trying to shut it off, and that's like, wait a minute, you let us in, are you gonna try to shut it off? And so you gotta watch how much you let them in, because when it's time for your privacy again, you know, how do you close that door when you've been leaving it open for so long? You see, so that All Access, great story based in Atlanta. So it becomes a suspenseful story of who did what.
So what would be next in terms of screenplay for you?
Well, you keep writing them. The money is always the most important. I'm trying to find partners who will allow me to come to the table and express my creativity, because that's where it's going to go. You're going to have to deal with the creator, and so the money and the creativity, both having the same vision, that's the hardest. But I have to find that. It has to happen, because I have too much content that's waiting.
But as a writer, you know what I say? I always say that creativity sometimes have a mind of its own. You know, as a creative person like yourself, creativity, I mean, that's the most beautiful thing, the creativity. But when you have to take it to another level, you know, the screenplay, it takes some doing. So you have to learn a lot of things.
Yeah, well, I'm already learning a whole lot of stuff now. But like I said, I would love to see Hollywood, you know, but I wouldn't back down from my screenplay, because I know it's a waste of time. They can do that, and okay, this is what our screenplay is, but it's still a waste of time. It's not going to have the feeling, the heart, the texture
that you know it should have.
It's not. I don't care who writes it. It's not. And when they hear that, they're like, oh, he's going to prove it to me. But they're going to say, well, I'm not getting any money to prove it. You know what I mean? So it's never going to happen, because it's not like they're going to pay a top-notch writer to write the thing. You see what I'm talking about? Which wouldn't make any. But now you're going to pay somebody to outright Omar instead of using Omar. It doesn't make any sense.
You can't do Omar better than Omar does Omar with his own book.
That's the thing. It's like, so they hear that and say, okay, he's on his ego tipping up. Dude, I gave you 5 years.
And it's not
I went on ego tip for 5 years, and then I finally said, yo, dude, let me stop sitting around and write. And instead of you looking at that as an initiative good thing, you looking at it as a bad thing. Like, I got the screenplay ready to go now. I got people excited for it again. You see what I'm talking about? And all you got to do is get behind me, and I'll keep doing it. I'll keep doing interviews. I'll keep talking about it. I'll sit down and talk to the people I want to be in this. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then when it's done, who's going to talk about it more to keep the sales going? I'm ready to do a 25-city tour. No stars are going to do that, because they got to move on to the next movie, and that agent going to say, why are you doing a 25-city tour on a movie you already got paid for?
Well,
are you getting dividends on the back end? You see what I'm talking about? So there's no reason for it. Most actors that get involved like that, unless you're getting dividends on the back end, which on this property, probably the only person I could see getting that would be Holly Berry. If, you know, I get her in as the mom and she come in with a production credit and all that, she'll get some back. So that's the one. But even with Holly Berry, I know she's going to want to move on and do other things. She don't want to travel around the week. But if I'm part of the deal, I can travel. I don't care. I'm going to go travel for free. I'm going to do tours. I'm going to do international tours. And we pushing the heck out of that movie. You got no other person that's going to do that but me.
Yes.
Because you're going to have to pay everybody else, and nobody else is as close to the story as I am. It's natural for me to do it.
Well, yeah, it's your baby. You've been doing it all the years I've been doing it.
So if you look at that on a marketing angle, so it makes all the sense in the world for us to get in bed all the way with Omar. All the way. And understand everything he's doing, give him everything he needs, and help him take us to the promise. That just makes all the sense.
So you can in turn help somebody else.
That just makes all the sense in
Yes.
the world. You know?
Wow.
But yeah, because if you beat me out of it, now you got a rip between the original source and what you're trying to do.
Well, brother, I appreciate you coming and sharing with me
thanks,
all the time, man. It's been a lot of years, man. I appreciate you coming back and sharing with us here on Color Me
Yeah, you
Poetry.
got it.
And when you make that billion, you come on back and see us, right?
Yeah, man, sure.
Once again, the screenplay, quickly.
Again, the epic screenplay by Omar, Tyree, Fly Girl. And the cover is blue, and it has the 2 earrings with Tracy on it, so that's how you figure out you got the right one. Some
Yes.
people end up buying it. It's not this book here. It's the screenplay. It's going to be blue. If you see it on the screen, I think you guys have it. It's blue with the 2 earrings, Tracy on it. That's the screenplay that you want to buy off the ebooks. Right on.
Yes, but
And
don't forget
that's-
about the book
Yeah.
either, though, because it's a great book, brother.
Yeah,
Read it
but
years ago.
all the movies based on the screenplay.
Screenplay, yes.
We elevated.
Thank
to
you. Thank you, brother, for coming and sharing with us here on Color Me Poetry. I'm Danny Queen. And until next time, Color Me Poetry. And go check out the Fly Girl screenplay. Appreciate you, brother.
Hey, thanks, man.